In Service to Love, the relationship podcast that helps you create more love in the practical day-to-day, centering connection in the life of the modern family with your host, therapist, mother, and artist, Randé Dorn. Welcome. Happy New Year. My name is Randé Dorn, and this is the In Service to Love podcast. It is the first week of January in 2023, and I wanted to start with probably a pretty heavy topic, which is, should you get a divorce? Should you separate, divorce, break up? Why am I doing this on the first week? Because this is what's coming up. It's what's coming up in my work. Maybe it's also, in some ways, coming up with me. I will share that as this podcast will be released on Sunday of this week, my ex-husband will have been remarried 4 years after we separated. So he is getting married on Saturday, and they are expecting a child in March, which are both incredibly, really happy occasions, things for us to celebrate. And obviously, I'm sure I know I have some feelings about that. And I can hold both, right? I can hold the blessing of new life, the blessing of the transformation of love. I would say the blessing of the transformation of our own relationship. And at the same time, I'm sure, this can be potentially really helpful to talk about how I got how I got here, right? I was married. If you've listened to some of the other podcasts, I was married for 15 years, but we were together for 20. I apologize. My voice is a little wonky today because I celebrated New Year's Day at Disneyland with the kids, and that is really a happy place for me where I exercise and process a lot of my feelings. There's a lot of screaming that happens when I go to Disneyland and celebrating in the most positive way. So, I apologize if my voice isn't as smooth as it may normally sound. But yeah, this topic is coming up in my work, and I think why we might be feeling this, I'll just say collectively, because, at the end of the year, we're really starting to take stock of what was that year? What happened? What was it? What was it like? What did I get out of it? What do I, again, not want to bring with me into the new year? We think about what we said we were going to do and how close we got to those goals. And some of those goals are going to be around love and relationship. And, many of us can take this transition, it's just another day, but really the transition into a new year quite seriously. And from evaluating kind of where we are as another year passes and another year passes, we start to wonder, I imagine you start to wonder, how much more abundance and joy can I have? And how much am I actually tolerating things that maybe I should be letting go of? So I wanted to give you a couple of ideas and things to think about as you're contemplating, and this is a serious thing to contemplate, whether or not you want to stay in the relationship, marriage, partnership that you are currently in. What I do want to say up front, however, is that I am a therapist. Let me remind you, I am not a lawyer. And what I always tell my clients straight off the bat when they're starting to think about this is please, please, please consult a lawyer. And many lawyers will at least consult with you first time meeting for free. So these conversations can and should be had without breaking the bank. And why is it important? I tell my clients it's really important to consult a lawyer because you need to be in your power. You need to be informed when you are stepping into these really uncomfortable conversations with people that you may or may not love anymore, but who are certainly potentially going to step into the defense, and where these conversations may be uh, really difficult because we've invested things in each other, in property, in children, in pets, in all kinds of things. And so I really, really encourage you to speak to a lawyer so that when you are confronting this issue internally and with your partnership and potentially with your family, that you are informed. The other thing about this is I also encourage you not to talk to a lawyer so that you can be brutal or toxic and ugly when it comes to these conversations. Is that how you want to start this process? If you are considering doing this, I imagine it's because you actually want to create more space in your life, because you want a sense of relief. So why would you inform your process of relief or joy with immediate toxicity or immediate brutality, immediate aggression? So you're talking to the lawyer in order to be informed about next steps so that you can think about the practicality as well as think about and imagine the the fantasy around relief and around joy. The other thing that I want to also say up front, if these relationships are abusive in any way, and I'm really separating abuse from toxic, but abusive in any way where there is physical or verbal abuse towards you or certainly towards the children, then to me, that is already grounds to consider this not working. If the person who is being abusive is honestly not just saying, I'll take the steps, but if honestly taking the steps, getting help, going to therapy, going to um, any kind of program that will help transform their behavior, maybe there's hope. I would still make space, meaning separate myself and those that I love from experiencing more abuse while that person is taking the steps to transform their behavior. That is something that you all would need to make decisions around because you're in it. You know what you can tolerate, and you know what potentially is possible in the relationship. So I want to just say those things up front. Please seek consultation with a lawyer so that you are powerfully informed as to your options. And I would really encourage you to not stay in a position where you are being victimized, where you are being physically or verbally or mentally abused, and certainly that the children are not being abused. Those are situations in which, well, you're a victim. And so, how do you stand in your power? And so, even if you wanted to try and reform those relationships, they would have to still come from, you would have to still come from a place of power before you can really choose that relationship. Being a victim doesn't give you the option of choice. Okay, clearing the space of those two things. I want to give you a couple of points. There are more than a couple of points, quite a few points for you to think about and consider. And do this is homework. This is a really important conversation. This is a really important choice. Am I going to stay with someone or am I going to leave? Am I going to break up the family? And I'm saying break up, and some relationships aren't legalized, meaning it's not a marriage. But I'm not necessarily talking about someone you've dated for, a few months. There is absolutely information in here that you can get from it, but I'm really leaning towards some of those relationships that have a little bit more at stake. So the first thing to do, I encourage my clients to create a pie chart. Yay to graphics, right? And so on your pie chart, first I want you to have, so pie chart, right? It's a circle and you have little slices of pie. And this is a realistic pie chart. You can make an ideal pie chart, but this is more of a realistic pie chart. So you create your circle, and then on the side, I want you to create this list, things to think about. Your partner, separate from your family and kids, your career, your hobbies, your, if you're going to school, or if you love, taking interest in learning different classes, your sleep, your rest, and your self-care. There's certainly things that people like to do a lot of. So it may be, doing things that are in terms of entertainment or travel, but I don't want to get too much into the weeds, too much into the minutia of this stuff. So you have your list, right, of your big things, your partnership, your children, of your family, if that's included, extended family, career, hobbies. And then I want you to put those things in your pie chart as, again, realistically as possible. And you can decide, do I want to do this in a day time frame? Do I want to do this in a week time frame or a month? I'd probably encourage you more towards the week or towards the month. But once you start to put those things in that pie chart, what I think you will notice, hopefully, is that your partnership is not 100% of that pie chart. There are friends. Oh, I didn't even put that on there, right? So their friends take up time, your hobbies take up time, your career takes up, usually for a lot of people, or work, a lot of time. Your sleep takes up, hopefully, a big chunk of time. And so what you'll find is that your partnership probably takes maybe 25%, 30% of your time. And so when we think about or realize, oh, I'm only giving or getting about 20 or 30% of my partner's time, then now that we're thinking about, should I be with them? Should I not be with them? Partly while we're trying to decide that is because something doesn't feel good. Something doesn't feel good in this relationship. How we're relating to each other doesn't feel good. I don't feel connected. I feel alone. I don't feel understood. I don't feel heard. There's a lot of communication issues. And there are communication issues around expectations. I want more of this. I want less of this. I want more of this. I want less of this, right? I want more sex. I want more time together. I want more excitement. I want more adventure. I want less, busyness. I want less dirt, clean up the house. I want to do less childcare. I want more help. So if you think, oh, I only get 30% of this person's time, and really I'm only giving 25 or 30% of my time, how out of whack are your expectations for this person? And if you went through your pie chart and maybe there's only 4 things on the list, and let's say you said partnership 50%, I'm exaggerating, but let's say you said partnership 50%, and then you said work 30%, and then whatever the math is, sleep the rest of the time, then you're out of whack. That is a terrible pie chart, and that's something for you to fix. Your partnership, maybe I'm going to just give my opinion now, your partnership shouldn't be more necessarily the 30 or 40%, probably 25, 30% of your time. Maybe more if you have a business together and you're working together. But your pie chart, for you to be a full, diverse person, should include all these other things, even if it's 10% here or 12% there, 20% there. Do you see that if you really had a full, robust life, there's no way you could give all this time to your partnership? And if your partner had a full, robust life, they can't give all of this time to you either, because they equally have hobbies and friends and family and career and sleep that in a lot of ways don't include you. So there are these moments, I think, these times when we can get smaller, 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 and more isolated in how we relate to each other, where our partner has to be our best friend and our chef and our lover and the person who fixes all the things and the person who provides all the money. And then we got to be, you know, like, what is it called? It's not bosses together, but like a power couple. And then they got to be powerful. And then they got to be in shape. I'd even put, right, health and fitness. Put that on your chart too, right? Health and fitness. So some of these things, yes, we can do together. Sometimes we can work out together. Some of our hobbies can be together. But you deserve, and your partner and your children, you deserve to have time apart. What brought the two of you together was the attraction to the wholeness of who you are, how you presented yourself physically, the stories that you told about the life that you led, your interest in your friends, your passions in life, the goals that you had. That's what drew your partnership to you. And so if you let all of those things go and you just concentrated on the partnership and work, or partnership and house cleaning, or partnership and just the kids, I'm sorry to say that's boring. It's boring to you, which is why you're looking for your partner to do more. And it's probably on some level boring to your partner. And so as you're looking at this list and you're trying to decide, do I want to stay in this partnership? One of the first things to really think about is, am I showing up to this partnership fully alive? Am I showing up to this partnership in my full diversity? Am I being interesting? Am I being funny? Am I being the peace that my partner deserves? Because many of us are coming to our partner with those expectations. Do more, be more. But I ask you, are you doing more and being more? Are you being responsible for your own happiness and then sharing that happiness in partnership? Because if you are in some ways turning yourself inside out and saying, I want all of the outside things, my partner, my kids, my career, if I want all of these outside things to fulfill me, to bring me happiness, versus creating happiness internally, and from that happiness, engaging with these things, you're always going to be out of your own power in relationship to your life. We oftentimes in these moments we're trying to decide whether we should stay or whether we should go, is that we're withholding, first of all, and then we're expecting for our partner, without any evidence from us, we're expecting for our partner to change. And if you change, if you become different, if you become better, then I will celebrate and I will be happier. And from that happiness, right, will create a feedback loop. And I'm going to tell you, it doesn't often work that way. The idea of withholding my demonstration of joy, my demonstration of life, of aliveness, so that you do something. I'm almost punishing you sometimes so that you are different. And then when you're different, I'll reward you with my joy. I encourage you to go after your joy and see if you being in your joy transforms this relationship. And if it doesn't, then that's also your answer. So the first one is your pie chart. You list all the things, include health and fitness in there. And you see, and so that you, again, you just get as clear as possible a view of where you're spending your time. And if the things that I listed aren't on your chart, that's where you start. That's where you start in terms of improving your life and improving the anatomy of your relationship. The second thing I want to ask you to do is to really let yourself play, imagine, and fantasize about what it would actually look like if you got divorced, if you separated. Many people are afraid of this when I ask them to do this. It's like, no, 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 I don't want to see that. And to me, it's very similar to avoiding the conversation around death and around suicide. Suicide is a fantasy. People fantasize about dying because it allows them to fantasize about the relief they believe they will get if they're no longer on this earth. And part of that fantasy is recognizing there is a lot of grief that is left behind if you make that choice. Fantasize about what you think life will be like if you were to separate. Would you, where would you live? Would you move out? Would your partner move out? How would you pay for this? Would you be paying for this? Are you imagining your partner is paying for this? Because typically that doesn't happen, right? Typically, very many people, there's very few people, I should say, in this world who can afford two different places to live, plus, 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 plus. So you are fantasizing about where you're living. If you have children, where do they go? Are they with you or with them? Are they half time, full time? Who has physical legal custody? If you're moving someplace, are you close? Are you far? Do the children have to change their friends? Do they have to change their school? Do they have to change their doctors? Do they have to change, right, their hobbies? Do you plan on, which sometimes is like getting in shape, that revenge, like best life thing where you show your partner, look what you could have had. So you're going to get in shape. You're going to go on all these amazing dates. All of a sudden, all these people are after you because you're what? In shape and hopefully happier. You're having all this hot sex. Sometimes we imagine we're going to start all those new hobbies. We're going to spend more time traveling or seeing our friends. Something for you to think about: who gets the friends, because usually there's some type of division depending on how long you were together and how you all gain these friends within your relationship and your partnership. Do you plan on resting more or having more leisure time now that sometimes the kids won't be with you? Do you plan on engaging with your health in a different way? Do you have to get a new job to afford this new life that you're going to have? Do you expect that all of a sudden you'll be more expansive and have more money? Um, what is it? Like, let yourself expand and play. Give yourself in this fantasy all the things you think you would have, and think about the timeline too. Do you expect all this stuff to happen right away? Do you expect all this stuff to happen in 5 years? Do you plan on going back to school? Childcare, there's so many things. And I'm asking you to think about this because oftentimes we pull this lever of like, well, maybe we shouldn't be together. Maybe we should get divorced. And again, we can say that because we're really trying to hurt our partner. We're trying to get our partner to feel the hurt that we're feeling. And we are trying to get our partner to perk up, right? To like, okay, well then I'll work harder. I'll do something different. Again, without us potentially also putting in the work to improve this relationship. So there's always usually one who's always pulling that lever. We should get divorced. Maybe we should separate. We should get divorced. Maybe we should separate. And what would again encourage both of you to do, but certainly the one who keeps pulling that lever, is to fantasize about all the ways that your life would be different and better and easier, and how you would get that different and better and easier. I'm going to say, as someone who is divorced, you don't just wake up in a new apartment and then things are just different or better or easier. You have to build all of those structures again, all of those things. Getting divorced is starting over. Breaking up, separating, it is starting over. And if there's a part of you that is committed to this fantasy, then I ask you, what would it look like if you went after this same fantasy inside your marriage? If you got in shape within the partnership, if you started having more hot sex, if you really started going towards those hobbies, if you went to go see more of your friends, if you travel, and if you start to give me the excuse, well, my partner is in the way of that, most of us are not a victim in our partnerships. I'm going to challenge you. That is an excuse. And here's why I'm challenging you, because I've been in partnership, I've been in marriage for a really long time, and I've been out of it. And I really had to do the work out of partnership, now by myself with my children, part time, to build the life, to build the fantasy. The only reason why I was able to build it is because I was committed to building it. And there's a part of me that, yes, I was committed to proving myself right that I could do this outside of my relationship. I was committed to proving myself right that I deserved to be out of this relationship. I wasn't going to get out of this relationship and then fail. I'm sorry, have you met me? No. But as someone who's also in hindsight, could I have done some of the things that I did outside of my marriage in my marriage to improve me and my marriage? Yes. That's why I'm saying this to you. Because I want you to know that the hard work and commitment that you would do outside of your relationship, you can do inside your relationship. And you can do it outside of your relationship. This is not to convince you to stay. It's to convince you that you have options, and to give you a couple of different lenses in which to look at your relationship and make, again, an informed decision. Because if you were to look at, let's say, number two, and so I fantasize and I realize, here's the other thing that I want you to think about. If the fantasy feels so, 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 so good, and you realize it's worth fighting for, then you realize it's worth fighting for. And if you look at this fantasy and you say, but if I then plugged my partner into my fantasy, and you ask yourself, is that worth fighting for? And it is, then it's worth fighting for. I I want to give you an opportunity to again feel so settled and informed about your next steps and about your why. I was really clear. I was in therapy for about 18 months. Before I was in there before then, but it took me about 18 months to decide that I really wanted to have that conversation around separation and divorce. And what really for me, it was instantaneous. I might have mentioned this before that I went to the Mama Gina workshop in New York, and it was the first weekend. And it was a weekend of women and getting into our pleasure and getting into our bodies. And at the end of that 2-day workshop, I remember I was walking towards the exit and it was over. And I thought, yep, that's it. I have to get a divorce. And my reason for making that decision after all of that time and commitment in partnership was that the two of us we were growing apart. We were growing in two different directions. And the other part of that for me was that because if I had made that pie chart, it really would have been exactly what I was saying to you, small. It would have been so much of my time was spent um, being in relationship to my children and covering for me and covering for my partner. Not covering, I was being there as a partner, as a parent, but I was covering a lot of the work for my partner who was providing. And some of that providing, a lot of that providing at one point was out of town. That was not where our relationship started. Where our relationship started, he was working a lot, but typically was home in at the end of the evening, even if it was late. And because at the time didn't have kids and I was rehearsing and I was up late, I was kind of a night owl. It worked. It worked for us. And I was independent enough. I had my own work, friends, I was making dances, I don't know, running around town, being silly, whatever, having fun. That his schedule worked for me. Then when we had children and he started a new career, it worked less and less and less. And when I earnestly talked to him and asked him about how can we uh, transform this schedule, because then I started working full time. How do we transform this so that it feels more equitable, so it feels better to me? That was because it was my request. And so that we could potentially have more time together and me to have actually more time again to find myself, to be in my independence. It wasn't available. He wasn't available for that. He gets to say that. As painful as that might have been for me at the time, he gets to say exactly what he is willing and not willing to do. And so do I. We're two independent people. Again, back to the chart. We're giving each other 25-30% of our time. We get to be individuals. We get to say in every partnership what I'm willing and not willing to do. And so, from that very clear and honest answer and series of conversations, I got to be clear about my desire and about what I wanted. And it was not that. And so I decided that I was going to prove myself right, that I deserved something else. And so I was going to give myself that. And even though I'm not in partnership yet and have dated, different people throughout the last couple of years, I still truly believe that I deserve what it is that I want and what I'm looking for. And so I'm giving myself permission to wait for that or to look for that. And I'm giving myself permission to also give myself that in the life that I'm building for me. And so the next thing for you to think about is, I wrote these questions down, so I'm just going to read them. But one, how committed are you to proving yourself right that the marriage is over and your partner is the worst? Right? How committed are you in wanting to prove that like they've ruined it, they've done it, they're the worst, and like you're the perfect person and you're the victim, versus how committed are you in proving yourself wrong, meaning that this relationship is salvageable, that this partner is also experiencing pain and wounding and may also desire connection. Something that came to mind is in trying to decide this is that one, you should be talking to your partner about this, just like I did. And it's a conversation, it's a question. Do you want to stay together or not? And why? Why do you want to stay with me? If your partner says yes, why? What is it about me that you want to stay with? And I would ask you the same question. What is it about your partner that makes you want to stay? And if the answer is they help me pay the rent, or if the answer is they're good with the kids, or if the answer is I like that they take out the trash, no, those are not good enough answers. Because it's not about staying with them for them. You're only staying with them because of what they do for you. And some of those things you can just hire out. You need somebody to clean the house and take out the trash or watch your kids. Pay somebody. Don't torture somebody by pretending that you're in love with them when what you really want is free labor. That's wrong. It's so wrong on so many levels. That's not love. And again, it's you coming from a place of lack or a lack of imagination, as we talked about before, that's keeping you in a place of stuckness and fear, and then using somebody because they're available. Now, if you say, okay, I love that they do all those things, and I love how they think, I love their softness, I love their smile, they are so inspiring or interesting or challenging to me. I'm so attracted to them. That's different. There's some space. You see how there's space for that attraction and that connection to grow. There has to be something there to connect to, not just something there to utilize. And when you ask your partner that question, I encourage you to look for that experience, that answer. What is it about me that you are still committed to? And it can't just be, because you're a good mom. I can be a good mom and not be with you. Sometimes I can be a good mom because I'm not with you. Because the two of you are no longer fighting. The two of you are no longer disrespecting each other and beating each other up. So if you find that there is something in the person, the beingness of the person to still connect to, here's another tip. Maybe this is number 3. I don't know. What are you willing to do? Are you willing to go to therapy? Are you willing to go to a relationship coach? Are you willing to pick up a book? Are you willing to Google how to improve this relationship? Are you willing to listen to this podcast all the way through? Or some of the other ones I've already done? And not just reading the book and reading the Google and saying, here's some things that you should do. No, here's some things I should do. What are you willing to do? The doing is behavior. How we improve our relationships is behaving differently, not just thinking differently. We have to behave, sometimes even in spite of how we quote unquote feel. I don't feel like kissing them. I don't feel like holding their hand. I don't feel like being nice to them. Do you want to improve this relationship or not? Those things can improve over time if you do the practices that are laid out in a variety of books and internet searches. If you allow yourself to practice kindness, if you allow yourself to treat the other person with dignity, despite whatever it is they're doing. Because what I always tell people is that any improvement that you create, any practices of love, practices of kindness, anything you read and learn from a book or a YouTube search, they all go with you. So whether or not they improve this relationship, you getting better in the relationship will improve every relationship you touch. You withholding, you coming from a place of lack, you coming from a place of fear, you being disrespectful, you being mean, you being aggressive, you being toxic, all those things also follow you into any relationship you have with your children, at work, with your family, with your best friends. So which route do you want to take? Which route do you want to take? Who do you want to be? We often come into these arguments because we want that other person to be different so that we can feel different and be different. And I'm encouraging you as you make this decision to just be different and feel different no matter what they do. Because here's a part of my own truth. I decided to get a divorce. We decided to separate. And when we physically separated and sold the house, right? All the things, got rid of the house and the furniture and, and even the dog had to go somewhere else to a beautiful family, but it was still, right? Grief in that. Now I didn't get to see my children all the time. Now I had to live in a, tiny apartment for a while. There was a lot of things that I gave up to gain my freedom and my sense of self. I gave those things up because I truly believed that I deserved something different, a different experience. I wanted a different I wanted it so badly, a different experience, that I was willing to give so many things up to get it. And what was the experience that I wanted? I wanted more love in my life. I wanted the experience of more connection. And when we separated, my ex-husband fairly quickly moved into a new relationship. And so what did I have to do? I had to re-engage with my commitment to love. And that meant loving him and his new partner. It meant loving the fact that my children were going to be engaging in a new dynamic. It meant loving myself through the process of that transition. Was it hard? Absolutely. Of course it was. Was it sad? Absolutely. Of course it was. But that's how committed I was to spending more of my days in love and less in my days in anger and bitterness. Did I experience some of that too? Yes. Did I process that? Yes. But that's why I'm giving you these things to think about. Because sometimes when we're like, oh yeah, divorce fantasy, da da da, that we oftentimes don't fantasize about the fact that our partner is also having fantasies. They will also be building a whole new life with you or without you, depending on what your connections are. I can't control in my fantasy whether or not my children are also engaged in a new relationship with a step parent, or that my children will now have another sibling. I can't control any of that. My fantasy didn't include that, but my fantasy had to be so strong of a container that it could hold that it would have to be so rooted in something loving and genuine that it could allow for that kind of expansion and growth in all of our lives. And so as you're navigating, do I stay in this and do I don't? What are you willing to do to improve this? And what are you how are you willing to be if you decide to go? And depending on the relationship that you have, one or both of them may be options. Something else to think about. I already brought it up, but again, to not stay, going over my notes, not stay from a place of fear and not stay from a place of poverty, not staying from a place of lack, right? Again, that we have one short life. And if you realize the only reason why I'm staying is not because I love the other person, but it's because maybe I love what I get from them. It's horrible for all of you. It's a loveless place to live. And love is abundant. Love is expansive. And so why would you volunteer to be in a place of contraction? Does that mean jump ship today? No, not necessarily. It may mean, okay, do I need to find a new job? Do I need to go back to school? Or do I need to try and create, again, more love or at least connection or dignity in this relationship while I try and make that transition? If I decide I want to stay here, how do I root myself back into a place of deep care and deep love for everyone here, including myself? The other thing that I, in terms of thinking about who I would be and or that I wanted more love in my relationship, and so that's why probably why I left it, is that once I'm by myself, once you're by yourself in your new place with or without your children, you have to reconcile with who you are, with the person that was also showing up, like I said, in that relationship. I had to reconcile with the fact that I didn't have really a lot of hobbies at the time. To reconcile with the fact that I was just mostly parenting towards the end of that relationship. Parenting and working, parenting and working. I had minimized myself. And now half the week I wasn't parenting. Oh shoot, right? And I was like, "Oh no, I'm not a full person. Does that make me not less lovable? No, but I mean, it means that there's less things for a person who wants to love me to connect to. So I had to start the process of filling myself out. Again, could I potentially start to do that in a relationship? Probably. Would have changed the outcome? I don't know. I don't think so. And I actually don't wrestle with that. It's not a concern of mine. I don't want to go back. I so love moving forward and I'm really happy with my life. Really happy with my life. So I'm grateful for the choices that we made and the choices that I continue to make in my life, in my space. So things for you to think about. Here's some questions. Do you love your partner? Do you love them? You're trying to decide if I want to stay or go. Do you love them? Are you still attracted to them? Do you still respect them? Do you still include them? Do you consider them in your plans, in your future, in your day to day? Are your goals as a couple still in alignment? Or are your goals like mine, right? The goals that I had and my partner had started to go in two different directions. Are your goals as a couple still in alignment? Do you share the same values? And I would write all these down. Go back over, write them down so you can answer them. Do you share the same values? And a great question for you to think about, did you ever share the same values? Sometimes in our loneliness, we get into partnership that we really don't belong in. And so part of you considering all these questions is like, did any of these even exist before? If there's a lot of no's here, again, I'm making a face. This is probably not where you belong. Another one, are you still having regular orgasms? Basically, are you still consistently being intimate with each other? A relationship without intimacy is a friendship. It's a roommate situation. And that can go on for years, decades, because we can still have really incredible relationships with people. But for a type of what I would consider a marriage, a partnership, intimacy must be included. The two of you get to decide what that looks like. Maybe it's once a week or every day or once a month or, intimacy isn't just orgasms, but what orgasm really is, how I want to define it, it's like this place of pleasure and surrender. It is the place we go to when we really trust. It's a place of trust bonding, right? Like when I'm able to surrender, when I'm able to let go in my body, it's because I'm trusting you. And when we exchange that level of trust and intimacy, that translates that building that goodwill, it translates to the discussion around the new car, the discussion around moving, the discussion around what we eat for dinner. That when we are not regularly practicing intimacy and trust in intimacy, we start to regularly practice mistrust in our relationship. And again, defensiveness. Here's something that may feel hard to hear, but if you think you are hurting the children by staying in the relationship, you are. You are. Like, trust yourself. You know, if you are yelling, and you know what I mean by yelling, bickering, fine. Having arguments, fine. But if you're arguing to the place, to the level where you know you are negatively, horribly impacting the children, or at least you feel like you might be, then trust that that's the truth. Almost all of my work is with clients who, not all of it, but a lot of it with clients who have had childhoods where the relationship that they witnessed was difficult. And this is not to put everything on our parents. Our parents are imperfect, just like we are. And so you don't have to be perfect parents. You don't have to not argue. It's actually really good for your children to watch you have an argument and resolve it. To watch what you do when you are sad and angry. They need to witness how you manage your emotions. We're talking about that other level where you can tell that there is a deep level of disrespect that is being passed back and forth between the two of you. And so again, just reach into your heart, reach into your body, and if you're thinking, "Oh, this is probably really messing up the kids," you're right. It is. And stop trying to fool yourself that they don't feel anything, or if your children are wetting the bed crazy, when they're 7 or 8, if they're acting out in school, if they're controlling their eating, anything that feels so out of norm for your child, and they are in a toxic environment because the two of you are acting out at home, your children are acting out in response. That's what children do. That's the only way for them to demonstrate what's wrong, is for them to have these physical expressions, because they cannot usually at younger ages articulate the fact that, like, oh, we don't want you to be together, because that's not what they want. They just want you to stop fighting. And children will also say, hey, you should stop fighting. So again, if your children are talking to you and telling you this is horrible, please stop, please listen. Please know that they're asking this of you because that's what they want. They want you to stop. And if stopping means not being together, then that is something for you to really consider. So, this may have been a hard one for you to listen to. I have a few more for you to think about. I also wrote, if you truly deeply believe that you or your partner cannot change, if you do not trust the fact that your partner will change, then this is another reason for you to think about maybe ending this relationship. And going back to that feeling that you have about the kids, if you have them, or even your dog, your pets will also give you this information. This is not about me telling you when to go. I don't know your relationship. And even if I did, very, very rarely, I would never say you should go. I would say you should consider it. So you feel it. I want you to do this work so that you can get into your body, so that you can get into your imagination of what is possible for the improvement of the relationship or the improvement of your life. Just like I knew, when it's over. And if your body is telling you that it's time, then I also want you to trust your body to guide you towards the evolution and the ending of this relationship from a place of kindness, dignity, and love. And if that is your goal, kindness, dignity, and love, you will be able to move through this from that place, from that foundation. Because we're all just looking for love and connection. That's all any of us are really deeply trying to do. And if you feel and know I've outgrown this relationship or I can't get it here, know that you also deserve it. And also know that your partner also deserves to be loved properly, to be accepted for who they are and for how they want to show up in the world. We get into these places of wrestling with each other because be different, be different, be different. And at some point, when are you going to accept that they aren't? That this is who they are. This is who you've been with for 10 years or 5 years or 5 months. This is them. Do you want to have the capacity to love them as they are without any changes, with the idea that they are also accepting that challenge to love you as you are without any changes? And if you can't love them, their most authentic self, the way they are, without, we all change a little bit, without any drastic changes, then this is not the right fit. This is not about making them wrong or you wrong. It just means you're not the right fit. Or if you've grown into new people in some ways, you can also say, all right, we're not the same fit. We've changed in terms of what we're looking for. We don't have to make, where we come from, that place of dignity is that we don't have to make the other person wrong. And so I ask you, as I do end this, is for you to consider, what is it that you truly want in your life? What do you want to experience? What is the capacity of joy and love that you could have either in this relationship and then go for it, or even out of this relationship and then go for it? And instead, stop blaming your partner for the distance between where you are and where you want to be. If only they were better, I would be in this other place. If only they would do more, I would feel or be different. No, just go feel, be, or do different now. And then from that place, keep loving your partner, or from that place, let them go with love. Know what you want. Dive in deeply into understanding who you are, what your needs are, and from that place, diversify who gives you your needs. Your partner can do some, but you can do a lot, and so can your community, your work, all these other things within your pie chart. But also know your partner is limited in what they can do, and that they will love you with all that they can, just as much as you can love them with all that you can. And it's limited. And that the joy, the love, the expansiveness that you desire is in you, from you, to you. Let yourself have that. So as you make this decision around, should I stay or should I go, you first have to look at, where am I? Have I already left? And can I find myself again in this relationship? And if I can, do the work to find yourself. And if you can't in this relationship, you still have to do the work. So I invite you to move deeply from a place of love towards yourself, and from a place of love to either love even more fiercely your partner and to go through this list, or love your partner so fiercely that you let them go. All right, I'll end there. Feel free to reach out. Questions, emails, all the things. I hope this was helpful. All right, sending you all love. Bye. Thank you so much for listening. As always, please share, comment, and like so we can grow our community and bring more love to those you love. Great reviews mean a great deal to our work, so take a few minutes and write us a love letter today. Our hearts appreciate every word. Tune in next week for another episode.